Here today to share my story, and just bear with me. So my son, Giovonn Joseph McDade, was murdered on June 24th in the city of Kent by Officer Matthew Rausch and Officer William Davis with the use of deadly lethal force. The devastation that my family and I felt is just indescribable. I had no idea how the process, the loss, and no guidance on the steps towards accountability and justice. I joined Not This Time for support and guidance during this heartache of trying to fight for justice. The process of bearing my child, looking for an attorney, put a financial strain on me and most families in this type of situation. It costs anywhere from 10 to 20 grand to bury someone, and another 20 to 30 grand to hire an attorney. Most families don't have 40 grand at their disposal, and meanwhile, the officers get a team of attorneys funded by the unions and taxpayers. I quickly began to realize just how unfair this process was. I was reached by prosecutors regarding my son's inquest one day before the first arraignment. I requested that she ask the judge for an extension because I hadn't hired an attorney yet and I needed time to prepare. She called me the next day after court and stated that the judge denied my request and the inquest date was set to proceed in 7 weeks, December 11th, 2017. Only given 7-week notification of my son's inquest was absurd. I reached out to Not This Time regarding the situation with help to search for an attorney, for funding and support dealing with this bias process. Week 3, preparing for pre-hearing. Not This Time, Andre Taylor and Dove Taylor, Sonia Joseph, and myself attended. I requested for an extension to have time to get funds and hire an attorney. The judge denied my request, but stated that if I hired an attorney within 1 week, that she would grant me an extension. At that time, Andre Taylor from Not This Time told Judge Mahoney that his organization would fund the attorney, and within 72 hours, we hired 2 attorneys, Pat Bozeman and LaWanda Anderson. Pat Bozeman went to file for the extension and requested for the discovery into the murder of my son and was denied the request. Judge Mahoney stated that she changed her mind, that it was unfair for the other parties involved to be inconvenienced and to have to reschedule the inquest date. My attorneys had no choice but to withdraw because of lack of time to prepare and because of denial of the discovery, and I was left without counsel. I was livid at the injustices that I was experiencing. It seemed unbelievable. My son's death was considered an inconvenience to the officers and their state-paid attorneys. Those were unfair practices I experienced, and even though I got counsel, I was still denied my rights for justice. December 11th, the day of the inquest, I was denied to speak to the judge to ask her a question. At that point, I refused to take a seat and be part of this inquest process that was organized by the same people that failed my son, by a process that was biased and railroaded me through the whole process. I was angry, and I wasn't going to allow this to happen to me and any other family, and I boycotted my son's inquest and the whole inquest process. It was painful to have to grieve, bury your child, pay for everything, have your loved one degraded, criminalized, dehumanized, and then villainized by the false narratives. Having to fight for justice while being disrespected and dehumanized by the justice system was disheartening. And they continued the inquest process without me. There was no real independent investigation into my son's death. There is no accountability. As an impacted family, we want accountability and we want justice served. We want a fair process that views the death as homicides and criminal in nature. We want transparency so that the public and families have a clear view of what the proceedings are. We want families to be treated with respect and dignity, and the deceased person to be treated like a victim of murder. The county inquest process was one-sided and unfair, and I demanded change. And with that milestone, not this time, the Lyles family, the Lee family, pushed for reform into the inquest process. This also led to not this time and the PDA office creating the ordinance number 18652. The community calls it Sonia's Law. This ordinance provides families with officers involved shootings to have legal representation in an inquest. The inquest is currently still on hold and are in a lawsuit because of the reform and the pushback from law enforcement. There's a backlog of 34 families in King County waiting for inquests and answers into the murder of their loved ones. My son's case was the last inquest in December 2017 and is also the last inquest without legal representation. Why should you vote for Amendment 1? Because it's a stepping stone towards putting the inquest process in county law and providing a fair process so that families can get answers into the death of their loved ones and be provided with attorneys that have a broad role in advocating for all deaths involving law enforcement agencies, including deaths in custody.